there would be no more struggle or exhausting hustle. Rather, a relaxing into the knowledge that we are just fine, just as we are. Going one step further, we might see that those imperfections could actually be the doorways to new learning opportunities, experiences, conversations, and connections. Suddenly,
This might
perfect
lie
is not
what
the
you
simply
say.
desirable after all, and we realise we are capable of more than we've ever imagined. Let's cast our minds back to what the monk said in chapter 3. Wabi-sabi is about things in their natural, most authentic state.
It's funny because it's a search for authenticity, but at the same time, yeah, it is the artist's profile of the Enneagram. Anyway, welcome back to Montreal by Night. Sometime I feel like it, sometime I don't. What's important is that I keep on doing it. Progress over perfection. I believe we left off. Sorry, I'm already yawning. We left off at the downtown core. The beating heart of the city of dark miracles. The downtown core, including the areas known as the Main, the Golden Square Mile, Old Montreal, and Mont-Royal, defines Montreal. The regions form a nexus that unites the diverse sections of the city and gives them a common identity. Located on the southern slope of Montreal, the lockdown. No. I've been brainwashed by COVID for the last 2 years. The downtown core encompasses a rectangular area roughly 50 blocks long and 30 blocks wide. It is bordered by Westmount and the East End. Beginning around Atwater Avenue, the core stretches easterly along St. Catherine Street to the Pont Jacques-Cartier Bridge. Oh yeah, from Atwater to the Jacques-Cartier Bridge. Yeah, basically. The core's northernmost boundary is Sherbrooke Street, a major thoroughfare which runs almost the entire length of the island. The core's southernmost confine, imperfect, incomplete, and impermanent. It's fine. The core's southernmost confine is the elevated Ville-Marie Expressway. In truth, Montreal, especially the core, has no defined borders. Various neighborhoods bleed into each other's. Westmount is a primary example. One can travel from the area's opulent homes and Victorian mansions to grey high-rise and the fields of downtown, all within a few city blocks. Montreal had a small but beautiful skyline that contrasts with the ceaseless flow of the St. Lawrence River and the still majesty of Montreal. No building is taller than the cross of the Saint Joseph Oratory, a testament of the strength of the Catholic Church. The Place Ville-Marie Tower, with its 4 revolving spotlights, illuminates the night sky. Other modern high-rises loom over the city alongside the classical architecture of the Sun Life and Dominion Square building and the Montreal General Hospital. Nestled in the shadows of these skyscrapers are various churches, cathedrals, and historical buildings that lend Montreal its Gothic atmosphere. Atwater Avenue. Atwater is the westernmost boundary of downtown and the rough border between Westmount and Montreal proper. Along Atwater Avenue, below Ville-Marie Expressway, is Little Burgundy, an impoverished part of town. Originally, Little Burgundy and the area around the Lachine Canal consisted of mills and factory. The region attracted a blend of honest and hardworking people. It's kind of funny because Little Burgundy is kind of where Griffintown, a new neighborhood, has popped up in the last decade that I was away. So it's kind of funny to see a whole neighborhood that just from the ground up was kind of built and is still being built. Like there's plenty of works being done, and not all the buildings are full, and there's a few shops here and there, but there's no neighborhood life yet. So it's probably gonna take an extra 5 years, if not more. But yeah, it's really cute to see and discover that, because back in the days it was just landfill nearly. So discovering that part of town is kind of cute. In the 20th century, an influx of African American rail workers led the opening of several popular jazz clubs, speakeasies, and gambling dens. In the 1930s, during the Great Depression, the crime rate rose sharply and has only grown worse since. In the 1960s, Little Burgundy was the target of ambitious urban renewal. A large number of the simple homes and factories were demolished to make way for low-cost housing, the Canadian equivalent of housing projects. Okay. Many residents had already moved on to bigger and better things. Those who did stay soon left. Those who did stay soon left too, disappointed by the modern look and still rising poverty of the region. Only those on the brink of poverty remained. Today, Little Burgundy, along with the neighboring Saint-Henri and Pointe Saint-Charles Street, is the closest things that Montreal has to a slum. Crime and poverty run rampant as gangs, divided along with ethnic and linguistic lines, control areas through intimidation and violence. Well, it's kind of much more fancy now. It's not as poor, especially that kind of gentrified. Now it's really fancy. Well, not fancy, but like kind of trendy. A bit kind of hipster, wabi-sabi neighborhoods. It's like cute. There's like quite a few parks and schools, and it's more and more families moving in. But it's like Hochelaga Maisonneuve that has kind of been gentrified a bit as well. So I haven't been yet, to be honest. I would need to. Well, I went to the stadium, to the gym, and to the pool, but not to Omar itself. So that would be interesting to go and have a look anyway. I was thinking of going close to the bridge at some point in the next month. So I will probably do Hochelaga Maisonneuve at the same time. It's gonna be cold because right now it's winter, but that could be cool. Check the neighborhood if I still haven't been there in the last few weeks, and I want to take a photo of that bridge, because in every cities there are bridges. Beautiful bridges, not walls. Crime and poverty run rampant as gangs divided along ethnic and linguistic lines control areas through intimidation and violence. During the summer month, living conditions in Little Burgundy are bearable, but the long winter months are harsh and brutal. Few homes have heat, relying instead on crude fires that often result in devastating blaze that swept through the district. Children, however, suffer the most. The infant mortality rate is high, especially in the winter, as the bitter cold and uncaring parents claim the lives of the innocent. It is not uncommon to find the decaying remains of infants in the alleyways of Little Burgundy, and the Sabbath have taken to embracing those whom they find close to death, letting the friendly beast feast on their parents and siblings. The harsh life of Montreal. But it's more honest. It's less toxic. You know what you deal with. It's not social bullshit. Of course, there is that as well, but not to the same extent. It's kind of the landscape of the toxic behavior is kind of overshadowed by the harshness of the winter, so everyone probably feels more compassionate for each other because they know what it is to be like getting fucking cold if they wait for the bus too long in the morning or whatever. So everyone is reminded that life is not that simple. Places of note. The Canal Lachine. Although the Canal Lachine once served as the gateway between the Great Lakes and the rest of the world, it has fallen into disuse since the St. Lawrence Seaway opened in 1959. Today, the canal is dotted with abandoned and crumbling factories and docks. The structures are used by homeless and runaways who seek shelter from the elements. What I was talking about. Their parents or even their past. Duh. The Sabbath usually raid these factories when stocking up for blood feast. Now the canal has been kind of acclimatized as well, and it's actually a nice. I think that's what make Saint-Henri and Little Burgundy to a certain extent quite enjoyable, because during summer you can rollerblade, bike, run along the canal, and it's kind of cool, and even rent some kayaks, just not so far away, just next to Atwater. So it's kind of making, there's like fancy, kind of refurbished loft in old factory buildings and all that. So it's kind of providing, when it's kind of refurbished and kind of made to living standards or whatever, it's really making the experience kind of cool and trendy, and you have like a huge space for a good price, I guess. Well, that's another thing that has changed a lot in Montreal as well. Pricing is ramping up too. Of course, the video game industry is giving a lot of people a lot of good jobs and even if they were in their 20s. Now they are all, well, more of them are probably in their, of those people working back in the days in the gaming industry are now 40, 50. So they have standards, you know. The Sabbath usually raid these factories when stocking up for blood feasts. Yeah, come and get it. Okay. St. Catherine Street. Running the length of downtown, St. Catherine Street is in many ways the heart of Montreal. Yeah, of course it is St. Catherine. Along its sidewalk and other stores, churches, and buildings that give the city its unique flair. Unfortunately, harsh economic times and political uncertainty have taken their back rolls, have taken their toll, and what was once a safe area is now rife with crime. Many shops lie abandoned. Their boarded up windows and deteriorating facades testament to the dark power that lurks in Montreal. The empty and dark interiors of those stores serve the Sabbath as meeting places, torture chambers, and makeshift morgues. In contrast, the still thriving classical and Art Deco building on St. Catherine Street are cluttered with flashing neon signs that advertise strip joints and pawn shops. They are places where forbidden lust are realized and dreams are sold. The streets attract a large number of homeless and impoverished people who gather in grimy alleyways and corners, often braving the worst weather condition, hoping for a new pennies from shoppers and passersby. Hoping for a few pennies from shoppers and passersby. A large number of these beggars belong to immigrant families that, unable to earn a living and having no other means, sell their son or daughters into prostitution to make ends meet. Nightfall, when both undead and mortal predators roam the streets, is another threat entirely. Rapes, muggings, murders, and gang violence are on the rise and taint the downtown atmosphere. Most people tend to travel in groups, stick to well-lit areas, and give beggars and the homeless a wide berth. Not a wide berth, a wide berth. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but who cares? Although this area is mainly a commercial and financial district, a variety of apartment buildings and rundown row houses line the dimly lit side street that intersects St. Catherine. The condition of these places vary, but most are roach-infested one-room apartments or burned-out shells that are rented out at exorbitant rates. Already back in the days. University. Oh, so yeah, exactly. Oh, shit. Oh, sorry. Saint-Henri. Why is it taking the whole freaking thing now? Okay, that's better. The underground city, located beneath the downtown core and covering over 30 kilometers, is a vast underground network of tunnels, malls, metro station, and government offices known collectively as the underground city. The whole complex is connected to the metro, which makes it possible to travel virtually to virtually any location within the core without having to step outside. The network is densely packed with countless narrow corridors, each lined with small stores and restaurants. It connects the many malls that makes up the underground. By day, the complex is relatively safe. The number of shoppers and security guards keep crime to a minimum. After dark, however, the underground city becomes the domain of the Sabbath. The majority of the tunnels and hallways are gloomy and poorly patrolled. Strange sounds and screams can often be heard coming from the shadows. The Sabbath takes great pleasure in toying with unsuspecting shoppers and employees. The Canaanites play cruel games of cat and mouse that usually end with the bloody death of mortals. The Canaanites play cruel games of cat and mouse that usually end with the bloody death of mortals. Shopping. Who cares? People with nothing else to do with their money than spending money on shit to fill the hole. St. Catherine and the underground city comprise the shopping mecca of Montreal. Almost anything can be bought or sold in the shops that line the streets. Both above and below ground, more stores and malls cater to the mundane public, but it is not uncommon for fashion-conscious Sabbath to shop in, or more often break into the area's boutique. Les Cours Royal, one of the smallest and most elegant downtown malls. Les Cours has a modern Baroque feel. It's decorated with columns, fountains, and a central courtyard above the mall's open courtyard is a series of expensive and luxurious condominiums. Carolina Valles, the Archbishop of Montreal, makes the entire top floor a secondary heaven from which she can keep an eye on her mortal granddaughter who lives in the same building. Promenade de la Cathédrale. Les Promenades de la Cathédrale, one of the most unusual downtown malls, is built directly beneath the Christchurch Cathedral. The builders tried to incorporate the architecture of the cathedral, one of the finest Gothic buildings in Canada, into the construction of the mall. The result is a Gothic motif and style combined with modern efficiency. Dark stone walls and vaulted ceilings, combined with stone carvings and statues, give the Promenade de la Cathédrale a cavernous ambience that makes it a popular Sabbath hangout. The central area, which under the cathedral is located, is a hanging garden that makes the mall a hauntingly beautiful place for Canaanites to hold meetings and the occasional blood feasts. Above ground shopping. Aside from the mall stores that are unable to pay the steep rent of the malls, there are a number of shopping institutions such as Holt Renfrew, the Hudson Bay Company, Eaton's, and Ogilvy. No, that's the one where I think it's a mistake. It's like a typo. It's Ogilvy. Ogilvy. Eaton's and Ogilvy's that cater to those with expensive taste and a lot of designer fashion. These four complexes are modeled in the early part of the century and are beautiful, especially the Art Deco style Holt Renfrew and Eaton buildings. Nightlife. Bishop Crescent and De La Montagne Streets which intersect St. Catherine and bastion of for the majority of Montreal's mega clubs. These top 40 night spot with their multiple bars. I'm just I was just thinking about one of my instances earlier. A private show. Oh my. These top 40 night spots. These top 40 night spots, which they're. Oh, fuck me life. These top 40 night spots, with their multiple bar and dance floor, attract underage youth and those wanting to lose themselves in alcohol or sex. Crescent Street is the most famous of the three streets. It houses the Hard Rock Cafe, Sir Winston Churchill Pub, and Thursdays. St. Catherine is also home to a number of seedy strip clubs, such as Club Eden, which features, for select customers only, child dancers of both sexes. I need to take a note of that. not the child dancers of both sexes, but the I want to do because I want to. Where's my freaking cursor? The Hard Rock Cafe. That would be actually cool to go at least once, just because my old boss used to work in the franchise, and so now it's kind of a way for me to remind myself of Jeremy. It was fun. I felt offended that I was the last one to be I thought it was checking after me a bit more, but at the same time, why would he? I was just coming back out. I had been working for him for nearly a year. I was the most able to be in that position, and maybe was struggling. I don't know. Places are in. Oh fuck! I never remember. Pink would be characters. Can I change the label for the things? I don't think so. Places would be green because it's on the map. I can't remember what blue is supposed to be anymore. Anyway, I'll put it green. Because that would be actually cool to go and visit those places. I've never been. I never went out in the straight world. So straight clubs, never done them, but going out on Crescent Street could be interesting, I guess. Art and culture. Located on the corner of Jeanne Mance and Sainte Catherine in the cultural nexus of Montreal, the Place des Arts complex, spanning an entire city block, this series of modern buildings in the site of Montreal is the site of Montreal Museum of Contemporary Art. Not at the moment, because I think it's closed for renovation, and so they moved it in Ville-Marie. Quelque chose du genre. Can't remember exactly, but I believe so. The Orchestre Symphonique de Montréal, the Grand Ballet Canadien, and l'Opéra de Montréal. Place des Arts is also the main venue of Montreal's International Jazz Festival, which is held every month. Every month. I was like, what? No. Every June. much have I been recording? 30 minutes. So I'm probably gonna finish with places of interest for St. Catherine. St. James United Church, St. Catherine and city councillors. Lost amidst the facade of cheap stores that are characteristic of this stretch of St. Catherine, St. James was once one of the most beautiful churches in Montreal. In 1926, the church was in need of funds and the property around it was sold to local entrepreneurs. As a result, the church... I'm rethinking about some shit and I'm like, fuck, how can you be so delusional? There's so many fucking signs and I'm like, why did I wait it so long? I know why. In 1926, the church was in need of funds and the property around was... fuck me live. In 1926, the church... I'm dyslexic or I'm just really like unable to make sounds with my mouth. In 1926, the church was in need of funds and the property around it was sold to local entrepreneurs. As a result, the church's beauty was lost amongst the neon of downtown. In 1983, the church itself was put up for sale, but by 1989, the only buyers interested wanted to turn it into a parking lot. The church was left to fall apart and has become a haven for the homeless and a place where prostitutes can turn their trade. The interior of the church is in terrible condition. Many of its stained glass windows have been broken or stolen, and the stench of human excrement hangs in the air. Since 1991, the Sabbath has used the church's basement to dispose of the remains of blood feast victims. To date, I'm just so lost in my fucking mind that I'm like some words from a second ago are just re-popping and I'm just saying them again because I'm like, did I say that right? Anyway, today the pieces of over 500 corpses lie in the darkness in various states of decomposition. Whoa, is that real? Including a number of staked Cainites who failed their creation rite. Surrounded by rotting bodies, these vampires have slowly lost their sanity, or on rare occasions, a blood-curdling scream can be heard from the bowels of the church. A few homeless mortals, desperate and angry, have resorted to eating the decaying corpses, which has resulted in the spread of infectious disease. Okay, guys, treat it is for next time. It's 1 a.m. So I'm glad you joined me. You joined me for this lecture of Montreal by night. Next time, I should put myself a note. How do we do? Show markup to bar. Okay, whatever, it's not a big deal. I'll remember that I need to do a timeline for the history chapter and a map for the geography chapter, because that would make it so much easier. And I can fucking do that on Google Maps for sure. For the timeline, I'll have to check if that JavaScript script is still working. That would be cool. That would be fucking cool. I could have those two references. Linked to the YouTube audiobook so I can read it, but also if you want to actually see it on visual, then you would have access to the map and to the timeline. So next time, probably when I'll be in France, because it's nice to do when I'm in Montreal to keep me thinking and practicing and blah blah blah, but I'll probably have to do it again in France. Maybe I'll do that when I'm doing my forest therapy in close to Ladakh. Forest therapy and European Gay Ski Week, obviously, and I do the editing in Plombois while I'm having a fun time outside skiing and welcoming spring in the mountains, because the mountains are calling, because we both know it's not an easy ride. And that I'll think to you in the dark. On this note, I will tell you good night, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. In case I